Hey, everybody, welcome back inside the den. Happy New Year to everyone. Have a great holiday. Hope you've enjoyed the holiday season. It is flush with bowl games as we get set for the FCS championship game in Frisco. I had a great opportunity to catch up with former North Dakota State athletic director, current Kansas State athletic director Gene Taylor on the eve of the Wildcats facing off against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans at the Superdome. We visited about a variety of topics, his hiring of Chris Klieman, how that has panned out over the last 4 years, to now being on this national stage, to Taylor serving on the College Football Playoff Committee and where he sees the future of big boy college football going and how it affects the FCS. We also discuss about North Dakota State's potential at the FBS and how a door needs to be opened for the Bison to potentially walk through, and the value of bowl games, something that been a hot topic on my Twitter feed over the last week and a half, seeing what some value as meaningless, others value, certainly the players do, as a big opportunity for another game. Also, we go into the backstory of how North Dakota State and South Dakota State got the Dakota Marker rivalry going and how the Bison and Jacks each got in to the Missouri Valley Football Conference. It wasn't without a lot of hard work. So, our conversation with Gene Taylor here, next on The Den.
Happy New Year. Good to see you too. It's New Orleans, you gotta take it a little bit at a time. So we're just kind of getting through it. We've been here since Monday. So
New Year's Eve in New Orleans, that can't be a really raucous deal at all, I can't imagine, right?
Well, we actually talked about that, whether we were gonna leave after the game because it's 11:00 kick or let the players go down. So we're staying until New Year's Day. So it'll be interesting, but hopefully they'll be celebrating the win, but it's not gonna be easy, that's for sure.
I want to just go back a few weeks ago. We're watching McFeely, Kolpak, and I are up in the Fargo Dome press box, and we're watching the Bison game is playing out as you're playing the end of the game against TCU in the Big 12 championship game at another NFL stadium down in Arlington. Describe that and that game, Gene. Did that rank up there with some of the crazy ones here?
Well, yeah, it did. Unfortunately, Dom, I wasn't actually at the stadium. I was at my hotel room at the Gaylord because of the CFP deal, but the energy from the people that were there, that my family and friends and fans, they said it was unbelievable. It was, and it was just such a good football game. If you're not a fan of either team and you're just a fan of college football, how that game ended and how that went was just really, really an awesome atmosphere.
That's right, because you're on the College Football Playoff Committee, so you were. When did you actually celebrate with Chris? Was it not till like Monday, or when did you have a chance to actually celebrate?
Well, it's funny you asked that question. So, I saw him, a few days later, but the first time I actually saw him around the football team was Tuesday. They got here Monday, they practiced, and he literally grabs me after practice and he shakes my shoulders and gives me a big hug, goes, "We're playing the Sugar Bowl." So that was the first time we actually really celebrated the win. But yeah, it was interesting because I was in my room by myself watching the game, and the cleaning lady came in, and I said, "Can you come back?" And she said no. And so I let her clean. And about that time, she was in the restroom area of my hotel room, and that's when Max Duggan made that long run to basically tie it up. And I lost my mind, as you know, how I watch football games. And I think I scared the hell out of her, to be honest with you.
That's fantastic. I know there's a great story on ESPN.com that Chris Lowe wrote that I encourage everybody to write or to read before the game tomorrow. The text messages, emails you got when that December in 2018, did you save any of those from the crazy fans? Like, what the hell are you doing hiring an FCS coach?
I did save a few of them, and my kids actually saved a lot of the tweets that were out there from the social media world, and they pops up every once in a while. But I probably run into half a dozen or more of our fans that have literally said, "Gene, I was wrong. I'm sorry." I'm like, guys, you don't have to apologize. It is what it is. But yeah, there was a lot of interesting emails when we hired Chris. That's no question about it.
I know. And the pandemic year was a challenge for everybody. And I've talked with Chris about just the changes he made during that season. Where did you see things, I guess, big picture wise, after 2020, where things really changed what you saw for the last 2 years?
Well, he's talked about it, and it's true, and it's very similar to what we had at North Dakota State. Was the players and how much this group, the Deuce Vaughns and the Felixes and the Will Howards have come in and just really, it's a player-led team. And you can see that, Cade Warner comes, transfers from Nebraska, and Adrian Martinez, they come in and they set a standard in the locker room about expectations. And it's not a coaches-led deal. It's the players. And you can just sense it at practice. You can sense it at post-game. Even in the couple losses we had, how they manage that. It's been really fun to see. And it feels very much like what was built at North Dakota State all those years, and still happening, basically.
If I would have told you, though, 4 years in, you'd have a Big 12 football championship, would you believe me on that?
I'm not sure. I swear I'm not sure. I know that Chris had the capability, but it was going to, like you said, the pandemic hurt a lot and kind of set us back. But no, I'm not sure I would have believed you if we'd have been a Big 12 champion and 4 years into his career.
So expectations, we were just talking off air. You're thinking 30,000 K-State fans in the Sugar Bowl tomorrow at the Superdome?
I'm guessing we've sold all of our 15,000 tickets. And I was talking to our ticket manager yesterday, and he said, Gene, I've been looking where people are tweeting out where their seats are, and none of them are in our section. So, and if you walk down Bourbon Street, which I did only once so far since I've been here, there's a lot of purple. There's a lot of purple in this area.
Do you get a set? And this is like the first trip to Frisco on steroids. Is that similar to what you think you're going to have there?
Literally, we talked about that last night. We actually got some friends from Fargo down here that came down to the game, and we said it's basically on Frisco on steroids right now. Very similar to the first year.
I was joking with Klieman about this at the NFL draft when Carson got drafted in Chicago, and he was hobnobbing with Dabo Sweeney and Nick Saban. I'm like, boy, look at you, big shooter. You're talking with the Clemson coach and the Alabama coach. Now he's coaching against. I mean, just that to me is just surreal.
Yeah, it really is. And we just, before, I think you and I talked, I was at the press conference, and Nick Saban's Nick Saban, right? And you're looking at him up there, and the guy, their success is based on national championships, very similar to North Dakota State. And so I don't think Klieman is, he's not intimidated, to be honest with you. I think he's taking a little bit of a challenge because everybody's talking about Alabama. And I think he's a little tired of hearing about Alabama. And I think maybe our players, and to be honest with you, I think they're excited about they're going to play against Bryce Young and against their full team. And it's really cool if you think about it, that they're not having opt-outs and we're not having opt-outs in a game that's really, really important for us.
I got to ask you, because I know this time around, it's different for North Dakota State. They're playing South Dakota State, which I want to get to in a second, because obviously how critical you were in that piece. But the bowl experience, though, Gene, because I'm fighting that with fans up here that I'm sure the same kind of reaction you heard about going Division I about the FBS. Well, they're meaningless bowl games. That bowl game you guys had last year with LSU was not meaningless. So can you describe that atmosphere and what that meant for your program to get ready for this season?
Well, I've talked about it, and obviously being on the CFP committee, when we're going to expand to 12 teams, it's how you build your program. If you think about it, we went to the Memphis Bowl in Chris's second year, I believe it was, and we lost, but we were able to talk about being at a bowl game. And then we go to the Houston Bowl last year, the Texas Bowl, and we won. We beat an LSU team, and we were able to recruit to that. And now here we are at the Sugar Bowl. So it's critical as you build a program and then maintaining it. So I'm hoping that the bowl system doesn't get, totally destroyed. I think we're going to have to change it a little bit. I've obviously been here with the Sugar Bowl staff, and they have talked about how that's going to change even them when they get into the playoff in their quarterfinal game, because teams are going to come in Friday, play the game, and leave. But there is a lot of important pieces with the bowl system that I hope we can keep.
The bowls themselves, though, I mean, like I watched the Arkansas-Kansas game, which I'm sure you did. That meant a lot to both those teams. It wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't meaningless to them.
Right. 100%. And then for the players, and you get to these bowls, and there's a lot of activities and a lot of really fun things that they do for the players. It's not meaningless to them. And for Kansas, and first time they've been in a bowl in a long time, to be there, it was huge. And just for us now, we're at the Sugar Bowl. it's a big deal, and it really builds your program when you can get to those bowl games.
I know for Matt Larson told me, and I'm sure you know this, that he has to leave the room when they talk about for the FCS playoffs. Is it the same thing for you? Did you have to leave when they were talking about Kansas State as well?
Yeah, I did. I had to sit outside the room, and there was one point where I left the room and we were ranked, I don't know, like 4, and we were ranked like 9 or 10. And I left and I came back and we were ranked 12. And this was one of the earlier, and I came back and we're ranked 14. I said, I'm not leaving again. We're going to get out of the top 25. But, you have to do that just because they don't want to talk bad about you, right? Yeah. Or whatever. But yeah, I tell you what, I'd be happy to leave the room on a regular basis when I'm on the committee. That's a good thing.
How many more years do you have on the CFP?
Just one more. Next year is my last year.
Yeah, so you get out of Dodge before everything changes.
I know. It's going to be interesting. It doesn't change a lot in terms of selection process, but it will be different when you have 12 teams and then you figure out the conference champions and all that. It will be an interesting process when that happens in 2024, I guess.
What do you think of that? I'm a huge proponent of it. I have been for a long time. How do you think the college football fan will handle this in 24 when it goes to 12?
Well, Dom, I tell you, when we do our selections, you get down to the last couple of weeks and you're focusing on 5 or 6 teams, maybe 7 teams. Now you're going to be the fan bases of probably 20, 25 teams may have a shot to get in the top, in the top 12. And I think that's really going to be good in terms of interest. And some of these late November games are going to be really, really critical as to how they pan out. And, it's one thing to figure out what a 12-0 team looks like. It's way different when you're comparing a couple 8-4 or 9-3 teams, and they have very similar resumes. That's really going to be part of the equation as we get into it.
Do you imagine the season may start earlier now, just to maybe get out of the way of the NFL is maybe not the right way to describe it, but week 0 may become week 1, so to speak, in a couple of years?
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit, and as ADs we've talked about it. The challenge is, now you're starting your fall camp in late July.
Yep.
And these kids don't get really a break at all. And that's a little bit of a concern. But I think it's going to be a continued conversation with the football oversight committee and some of the folks that make those decisions. But all of a sudden you're right now we take the last week in July off, give them a week off, and they come in the first week in August. Now they're not going to be able to go home. It's going to be interesting. So we'll see.
So I got to take you back to a cold April day, I think it was, in 2004, when you're on the border of North and South Dakota, and the idea for the Dakota marker, Gene, and just give me your fondest recollections of that, and when you thought, okay, we've got something here with this as a trophy in a game.
It's funny because it was really a student-led deal. It was our student leadership that really came up with it, and the when the Swanson boys were the vice president and president. And when we were down there, we were trying to create a rivalry. Not that it didn't exist, but no offense, we were actually, North Dakota wasn't going, and South Dakota State and us were going. And so we said, we're going to create something. And I didn't realize how big it would turn into until after we played a couple of games. Mm-hmm. And now they're playing in the national championship. I think it's awesome.
Did you think it was actually later than this would happen? Because I think even when you were still here, we thought, well, SDSU's coming. Well, let's see. But regionalization always prevented the two from playing on the opposite side.
Yeah, and that's, I figured it would, because they would always make sure that they didn't make it. I'm not sure how the committee works, but they're always going to play in the semifinals or the quarterfinals, right? And so this is when I saw the selection this year. And by the way, I think, where were you perfect on your selection?
I got that right. Again? I got that right. Yep.
But it was kind of cool that they made it the way they did, and now Patty Viverito is probably the happiest person in the whole world that you have two. Did that happen a couple of years ago?
Yeah, Illinois, Chris's first title against Illinois State was the first time that happened. Yep.
Yeah, so I think maybe the committee tries to avoid that, but I think you really have 2 of the best teams in FCS playing in that championship.
Are you going to make it over to Frisco?
No, I'm going to be out at the other game in LA. So that's
the other game.
Yeah.
So does the whole committee get to you have to be there for the championship game? If you're on it, then you need to be there.
Yeah, we don't do much. We just kind of watch the game. The people on the basketball committee actually have to work. I don't have to work on this, but I just go to the game and enjoy it. So it's a pretty good gig, Dom. I'm telling you, it's not a bad.
It doesn't sound too bad. You're spending the holiday in New Orleans, man, and then you get to go to LA for the national championship. That doesn't sound too bad at all. I am interested. Just I know you got to go, and I apologize. I kept it too long here, but just on where the game is, college football is going. NDSU fans keep asking, "Hey, we'd love to, we would love going to Frisco and winning." But the allure of the FBS, as you see it now, and who knows what the transformation committee is going to come down with teams moving up. But you've seen Kennesaw State, Gene, wasn't even Division I when you were still AD here, and now they're going to be an FBS team in a couple of years. Is the appetite? How does the door open for North Dakota State to get to the FBS?
Well, I think obviously they need an invitation from a conference. It'd be great if a conference would invite them for football only, which I think would make a lot of sense. They could stay in the Summit League for all their other sports from a regional perspective. I think if the Pac-12 reaches out and takes a San Diego State or somebody out of the Mountain West, I would love to see them have that opportunity, and they might. Who knows? But they've got to get an invitation, and I will tell you that I think they'd be very, very successful. As you know, Georgia Southern has been, and James Madison has been, North Dakota State with 23 more scholarships. Then they got to balance the Title IX thing. But, I do think they have a chance. It's just they've got to get that invitation. And I think the football-only invitation makes the most sense to me.
I have to ask you, because I was talking with Patty about this for a story we're doing. I vividly remember talking with you the day after I think the invitation came from the Gateway Football Conference, not the Missouri Valley. Tell me about what you remember about the presentation and the feedback you got from some of the Southern schools that weren't thrilled about adding North Dakota State and South Dakota State.
Well, they just kept talking about the weather and how are we going to get in. I'm like, we had more games canceled in Tulsa for Oral Roberts than we ever did at North Dakota State. I mean, they would get ice storms and we get games canceled during basketball, and they would fly into our airport and be 2 minutes from the campus. Yep. And they finally realized, okay, maybe this isn't a bad. But they always worried about the weather. Oh my God, we're never gonna be able to play games. And it was. But then once they got there, I think they realized it was a pretty special place.
Was there a lot of resistance though? Do you remember from other presidents or ADs about you guys coming in?
Yeah, one of the biggest one was from Oral Roberts. Now Oral Roberts from the Summit League, but to tell you the story that Patty Viverito, when we were making the transition, I sat down with her and I said, Patty, what do you think? She goes, Gene, don't go. You're never going to get in the Missouri Valley. You're not going to get in our conference. We will never invite you. And literally the day that Tom Duple invited us to the Summit League or the Gateway, I get back to my office. The first call I get is Patty Viverito. And I just sat there for a while. She goes, yep, Gene, I'm answering a lot of crow. We'd like you to come in the Missouri Valley in football. I said, Patty, remember? She goes, I remember the conversation. I'm sorry, but yes, we'd love you to still come. So it was kind of a full circle deal. That's for sure.
I don't think I knew that. That's fantastic. I don't think I knew that story. That's pretty good. So I know the answer to this, but have you ever thought about watching the game up top, or I know you're a sideline guy. That's where you got to be.
Yeah, no, I'm a sideline guy. Now I'll go to my seats for a while, but
you got to hobnob, right? You got to shake some hands. I know you got to
eventually do that. But when I was in Fargo, we didn't have an AD suite, and I would be in my seats, and we wouldn't play very well. I'd say a few bad words. My wife would be like, "Okay, it's time for you to go down on the sideline." I'm like, "All right, here I go." So yeah, I can say bad words on the sideline, and nobody hears me. So I'm a sideline guy. I'm telling you.
It's great to catch up. Thanks so much for giving us so much of your time. Really great to see you. Have a great time tomorrow. I know you have a ton of people up here going to be watching the game tomorrow afternoon.
Hey, by the way, it wasn't a fumble. It really wasn't a fumble.
I don't disagree. I'm with you, but the referees called it. They didn't have a better angle. How does that happen? I don't understand.
Good to catch up with you, my friend.
Yeah, have a great new year, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Talk to you later. Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate Gene Taylor's time for joining us here on Dizzo's Den, the podcast. If you missed any of our past shows, you can download them and listen to them at inforum.com or Google Play or Apple iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Many more interviews we have planned, not just all sports either. Excited to branch out a little bit in 2023. So bookmark this page. We got a heck of a lot more coming for you in the new year. Happy New Year, everybody, and enjoy some football.